Hi crafters, Amy here with Amy's Wares, and I'm going to show you one stencil 3 ways. So this is the new-ish pile of present stencil from a Colorful Life Designs, and I did use pixie spray on it. I have some watercolor paper here and these amazing Nouveau shimmer pigment powders. I have the Solar Flare, Blue Blitz, and I believe Cherry Bomb. And I'm going to show you one fun way to use this with your stencil. Now here is a photo of the first technique that I'm going to show you. I will walk you through this process, but I have a couple other techniques to share with you as well. So to start, I'm just going to put the stencil down directly on this A2 size panel of watercolor paper, and it is just inexpensive Canson XL watercolor paper, so you don't need anything super high end for this technique. You just basically need a sort of watercolor paper that can handle the liquid. So these shimmer powders, if you haven't seen them before, are one of my absolute favorite, and I love using them with stencils. It never gets old to me. So when you get these bottles, do not squeeze them. You want to just gently tap on the bottom and drop little piles of this shimmer powder all over your project. But if you squeeze it, you're going to have Hot Mess Express on your hands. So just lay down some little piles, and you can always add more if you need to. I have this little brush just to kind of help work the pigment around, and yeah, what sorcery is this? I think of that every single time I see this, because it just goes from this little tiny pile of random powder to this amazing blend of colorful goodness. So I just love these, and I'm always surprised at how crystal clear of an image you can get with your stencils. And if you haven't tried this, absolutely try it. It is so fun. So basically I'm just using this little brush to kind of work through any little piles of powder that didn't get saturated enough. You don't want to leave those behind because those will rub off. And this is a sort of medium that will work best with a fixative, but I will tell you honestly, I've made so many cards with this stuff and I've never used a fixative. So unless your recipient is going to be, rubbing their hands all over it, I wouldn't worry about it, but that is just something to consider, is that it can rub off. So it's still very wet there. I'm just going to set it aside to dry, and in real time here, I'm starting on the next project. So for this card, I just wiped off the stencil. It still has the pixie spray on it, but I cleaned it off so that I can create this second card for you. And do stick around, I'll show you a third option as well at the end. But basically, I'm lining this one right up in the center. As you may have seen on the watercolor one, I kind of kicked the composition off to the side a little bit, but this one I'm just lining it up right in the center of this A2 size card panel. And I'm just going to start with some residual ink on my blending brushes. If you've watched any of my videos, you know I'm often using Catherine Pooler inks. I do have this set of blending brushes that are designated strictly for my dye inks, and I don't typically clean them. So I have a lot of residual ink that I can lay down a little bit less saturated of a color, and then still, not waste the ink. I'm just going to come back and use it later. So I laid down a rainbow of color. So this pile of presents obviously will go great for Christmas, for birthdays, any sort of situation where you could use gifts. So I love versatile stencils like this. Now I want to show you a fun optional technique. This is another older stencil. It's called Meet in the Middle. I should have used pixie spray on this one. You'll see there are so many little fine lines. This would be exactly the sort of stencil where you would want to use pixie spray. But I'm just going to grab an ink pad of green and kind of lay some stripes on just this one single present on the design. I thought it would be kind of a neat, unexpected design feature. And I'm trying not to go back and forth side to side. I'm just kind of going with the grain of the stencil, hoping to not mess it up too much. And you'll see when I'm done here, I didn't do a great job. I kind of made a mess of it. Not ideal, but again, that's because I didn't use any pixie spray where I really should have. But have no fear, it still ended up working great, and I just ended up kind of finishing the card in such a way where that isn't as evident. So now I want to jazz it up even further, and this is a fun way to take your stencils to a new level, is to emboss over them. So I don't know if you guys have embossing folders. I have been on an absolute kick with my 3D embossing folders from Altenew. They're my absolute favorite, but how cool is this? So it doesn't take away from the stencil at all, but it adds this amazing texture and design to your card. So I'm just going to attach this directly to a card base. This is Neenah Classic Crest Solar White, 110 pound. And I did trim just a little bit off the sides of this panel, just so there is a little bit of a white border. But you could have just left it A2 size and applied it directly to your card base. So now I'm going to figure out what sentiment I want to use. I'm shopping my sentiment book. This is my storage solution for my die cuts. So if I'm having, I don't know, maybe an uninspired sort of day, but I want to be around my crafty goodies, or I want to feel productive, then I might just sit, in front of the TV and die cut a bunch of my Word die cuts out so that I have them ready to go. And these are baseball card pocket protector sheets. I do decide to end up going with this sentiment strip and the shadow layer die. These are both from a small woman-owned business in Michigan called LDRS Creative. So I do pick one sentiment for the inside, one for the outside, and then this really pretty blue colored cardstock for the shadow layer. So I will link these products as well as any other available products in the video description box below. If you expand and scroll down, you'll find all those details. But be sure to check out the shop there at LDRS as well. So I'm just lining up these sentiments right on these cool shadow layers to add some color and help them kind of stand off the background. And I'm just going to liquid glue this one to the inside of the card, and then I will put this other one on the front with these little foam strips. I get these from Amazon, so they're like the perfect size to go behind these little sentiment strips. So I'm going to remove the backer and lay that down right over the present that has that stripe design mistake. So it kind of really separates the top part where the blending looks good and the bottom part where it doesn't look so good. So it was kind of a perfect masking for my little mistake. And I will add some blingage. I have these white opaque iridescent sort of sequins, and I'm going to put them down in odd numbers, so 2 on the bottom and 3 on the top. And that's basically going to finish this card. Now back to this other panel. Now that it's dried, I did use my heat gun to kind of speed it along, but normally I do kind of leave it be and let it air dry and do its magic. But it had pretty much dried. I just kind of finished it off the rest of the way. And I am fussy cutting this out. So this is another fun way to use a nice big imposing stencil like this, is to just fussy cut it out. And then you have some, creative liberty to do some even more interesting design features on your card. So a tip with fussy cutting is to turn the paper, not your scissors. So it's less fatigue on your hands and also kind of gives you a smoother cut. So I'm just going to trim off this little bottom bit, and then I decide I want to take another panel of Neenah Classic Crest Solar White, and this is my beloved angled mosaic 3D embossing folder. Just going to spritz this panel with some water and then run it through my die cutting machine to create just this plain white, beautifully embossed background that we're going to incorporate into the card. And do stick around, I will show you another finished card with another option as well with the stencil. So I'm just going to attach this embossed panel directly to a card base, again 110 pound Neenah Classic Crest Solar White, and then I'm going to attach this beautiful shimmery panel on top of the card base. So I'm going to use this awesome sticky foam from scrapbook.com. This stuff is no joke. It is very sticky, but I'm being pretty liberal with the amount. I want to make sure that it has good support in the event I ship it, but it is definitely going to be, bulkier than the other cards that I'm showing you today. So I'm just going to remove the backer and then still kick this off to the left side of the composition because I do still like that look. And then I'm going to bring back that wish die cut that I pulled as a potential option for the first card, and I feel like it works really well in this open white space on my card. And I'm just going to add this gold sequins in 3 different sizes and odd numbers all over the front of the card, just because it ties in really well with the warm shimmery colors from the powder as well as the gold from the die cut. So that is going to finish that card. Now here's a close-up of the first card that I made for you today. You can see it has an awesome dimension from the embossing. Here's all 3 cards together. I'm just going to show you as well. This one came together beautifully. It's nice and flat, has a little bit of dimension from the sentiment strip on the front, but overall pretty low profile, should be easy to ship. And then the next card with my favorite shimmer powders, so pretty when it catches the light. So this one obviously has quite a bit more dimension between the foam tape and the embossing folder. And then this final card is actually the Christmas card. So I use non-traditional colors. This would be great with, you know, green and red, but I masked off every single little present and the ribbons. So that's another fun way to use this stencil, is to mask it off and make all different individuals colored presents, and you can double it up like I did with the striped one, so to get even more versatility. So be sure to check out the rest of the shop, and don't forget my coupon if you do, but tons of versatile stencils like this in the shop. So thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you next time. Bye.